Now, there's an interesting use of labels in the English language now, too. Interesting use of labels in the English language in trying to define who's with the left, who's against the left, who's with the president, who's against the president, who is a conservative, who's not a conservative. And the vast majority of them are self-serving. The vast majority of them are self-serving. Appeasement is not an outsider position. It is a liberal position. It is a liberal position. It's a foolish position. Supporting a strong military is not an insider position. It's a rational position, given the dangers we face. And our president recognizes that because he says that's why he signed that horrific budget, because it provided more money for the United States military, and I believe him. So be careful of the phraseology that's being thrown around out there. It still, for the most part, comes down to ideas and principles and belief systems, not a one-word label. I'm just pointing that out. I think it's important. I want you to listen to what Bernie Sanders said today. Do we have time for this, Rich? And I want to discuss it next hour because I think this has huge ramifications, too. Bernie Sanders at the People 2018 Summit, which is organized and funded by groups like the Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood, which you subsidize, the SEIU, MoveOn.org, and a bunch of groups like that, left-wing radical kook groups. Listen to Bernie Sanders. Cut 15, go.
And I want to thank all of the groups here because whether you know it or not, you have helped transform this country in so many ways. A few years ago, just a few years ago, and I want you to think about it, many of the ideas that we talked about were thought to be fringe ideas, radical ideas, extremist ideas. Well, you know what? Because of your efforts, those ideas are now mainstream American ideas.
Do you agree with that? I want to talk to you about this. And in connection with that, Mr. Producer, let's get the Wolf Blitzer cut ready. In connection with that, in my opinion, I want you to listen to this little exchange on CNN with Wolf Blitzer. Go ahead.
But a lot of people do take it seriously, and it's having an impact.
A lot of his supporters believe that we are the enemy of the American people, and that is really, really an awful situation. We are not the enemy of the American people. We love the American people.
Wolf Blitzer is announcing for the entirety of the media that they love the American people. How so? How so? Do we actually have a free press in this country? Are not the press in this country giving voice, in fact, a propaganda machine for exactly what Bernie Sanders is talking about? What used to be thought as radical ideas, fringe ideas, extremist ideas are now mainstream American ideas? Tell me, when is the last time a host at CNN promoted a conservative constitutionalist idea? When's the first time? When is the last time a host at MSNBC promoted a conservative constitutionalist idea? Or the first time? Or NBC, or ABC, or CBS, or most of the New York Times, and most of the Washington Post? I want to address this with you when we return.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. We have a very powerful hour. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Whatever happened to Stormy Daniels, by the way? I thought we were supposed to be talking about that for the next 12 months. Well, thank goodness we're not. I can point to numerous countries that have taken the progressive ideology to its full extreme into hardcore Marxism, resulting in deprivation, impoverishment, violence, a full-blown police state, murder by the state. There's so many you can name. Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, and you can go on and on, right? The ideology of the progressive left in this country, taken to its logical extreme, I might say, results in mayhem and worse. Can you show me where constitutional republicanism, lowercase r, constitutional republicanism, like a republic, has led anywhere at any time to that sort of a result? No, you can't. Nowhere has constitutional republicanism led to widespread genocide, impoverishment, and on and on. Nowhere. And this is why so many of us, and you and my beloved audience, we fight this force on the left. But Bernie Sanders is celebrating now. He's saying, look, a lot of our ideas have been accepted, but by whom have they been accepted? By a lot of Republicans. By a lot of Republican lawmakers, whether it's Obamacare or open borders or what have you. And, of course, the media in this country, which gives it voice, the propaganda wing. But they love us, of course. So once again, here's Bernie Sanders at the We the People 2018 summit. It is hilarious that they claim to be for the people. They're for government. Go ahead.
And I want to thank all of the groups here, because whether you know it or not, you have helped transform this country in so many ways. Just a few years ago, and I want you to think about it, many of the ideas that we talked about were thought to be fringe ideas, radical ideas, extremist ideas. Well, you know what? Because of your efforts, those ideas are now mainstream American ideas.
Now, a couple of things. Number one, Bernie Sanders is a Marxist. He can pretend to be a social democrat, but he's always been a Marxist. The media and the left want to portray him as this gentle old man who basically is, a hardcore liberal, but he's not. He's much worse. And he is telling you, they're celebrating there, that his ideas have been mainstreamed. And I'm here to tell you he's right. Not because we the people want it to be right. It's because the manner in which our governing system has been bastardized over the last century, it enables the radical progressive left to use the instrumentalities of government against us, whether they're in power or out of power. Now, when they're in power, they are used much more aggressively and at a faster pace. When they're out of power, they're still used. They use the courts and the people they put on the courts. They use what you call the swamp, what I have called over the decades the administrative state, this massive bureaucracy, this fourth branch of government, a permanent branch of government, if you will. It's what Donald Trump is having to battle. And then you hear this from Wolf Blitzer today. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
But a lot of people do take it seriously,
That's
and
the
it's,
problem.
and it's having an impact.
A lot of his supporters believe that we are the enemy of the American people, and that is really, really an awful situation. We are not.
Well, but you are the enemy of constitutional republicanism. There is no question about that. When you look at the lineup of hosts, when you look at the lopsided panels on CNN, I'm talking about CNN, he's on CNN. When you look at the way you cover stories or create non-stories, the failure of your cable network to ever delve deeply into what it means to have a constitutional republic, to give voice to all the leftist policies and arguments, whether it's the Second Amendment, whether it is an attack on freedom of religion over baking a cake and all these other things. There's absolutely no question where CNN as a corporate entity stands. There's absolutely no question where the New York Times is a corporate entity, the Washington Post is a corporate entity, MSNBC, NBC, its mothership, CBS and ABC stand. There's absolutely no question where the vast majority of self-appointed, self-anointed, so-called journalists stand. There just isn't. So when they say they love America, what do they mean exactly? When they are the propaganda wing of the Democrat Party and the most radical elements in the Democrat Party. And with the Trump presidency, they're completely out of the closet now. And so they take offense. They take affront when you say they hate America. Well, they'll tell you they love America. Well, no, they love an America as painted by Bernie Sanders. They don't love American history. They trash the founders. They don't love American history. They trash the founders. And they promote those who trash the founders. And they promote those who want fundamental transformation, like Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders and their ilk. What do they mean by loving America? I would love to have Wolf Blitzer on this show and have a serious, rational discussion with him. What do you mean that you love America? How do you love America? How do you show it? I mean, what is America? Wrote a whole book on this. Rediscovering Americanism. What is Americanism, Wolf? Jake Tapper had a book party in New York, apparently, with his favorite left-wing reporters and Hollywood types, Mr. Producer. Did you see a big picture of that? It's very, yeah, me neither. It's very incestuous. So when they say they love America, what do they mean by that? When they say they support Americanism, what exactly do they mean by that? And, of course, they say in a self-serving way that they are the defenders of freedom of the press. How are they defending freedom of the press? How are they defending freedom of the press? Against what? Against whom? What's Donald Trump doing to the press? Is he nationalizing the press? Is he taxing the press? Is he locking up members of the press? What exactly is Donald Trump doing to threaten freedom of the press, other than strongly disagree with the press, call them out, and trash them? They trash him 1,000 times more than he trashes them. You watch this Jim Acosta. What is he doing for freedom of the press? He says, you take press credentials away, that's like a dictatorship. It's like a dictatorship? No, a dictatorship would be putting you in cuffs, taking you away, and never seeing you again. That would be a dictatorship, Jim Acosta. But the media are not defending freedom of the press. These are corporations. And the reason CNN has lurched left from being left of center is because they think that's where the ratings are and the money is. And they're wrong, because their ratings are tanking. You know this guy, Jeff Zucker, just signed up to a new contract through 2020? Their ratings are down double digits. Now, why would a media corporation owned by a conglomerate re-sign Jeff Zucker? Why would they do that? Look at MSNBC. Why do they keep this Joy Reid on board? She's a liar. In the not-so-distant past, she was an anti-Semite, in my view, anti-gay. What happened? How does she get to stay? Are they defending freedom of the press? No, they're not defending freedom of the press. You know what they're defending? Progressivism in the press. That's what they're defending. Bernie Sanders, sadly enough, is right. At least as far as the public discussion is concerned. They've made these radical left ideas, fringe ideas, radical ideas, extremist ideas, thought to be in the past, mainstream American ideas. Now, let me give a caveat there. I don't believe they're mainstream American ideas, but they are certainly mainstream media ideas, mainstream Democrat Party ideas, mainstream Hollywood ideas, mainstream entertainment ideas, and more mainstream within the Republican Party, quite frankly. But that doesn't mean they're mainstream American ideas. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.